Hi everyone, in today's video we are going to build a small but fully functional React dashboard, which is going to show the list of posts. We are going to use React plus TypeScript, Zustand for state management. We are going to build some custom hooks. We are going to use React 19's use for data fetching, arrow boundaries, local storage, and we are going to see how can we persistently save some data there. And we are going to touch a little bit accessibility. We are going to use API of JSON placeholder. We are going to add filtering by user. We're going to add favorite posts functionality. We are going also to add clear favorites posts functionality and also undo, which you can reverse for 10 seconds. We are going to add switchers between all posts and favorites. We are going to keep favorites stored persistently after reload of the page. And I'll also explain how to manage focus states. So let's start with folder structure and what you need. First of all, I already created the project, so you need to create a project using white, and you need to choose that you are going to use also TypeScript. The folder structure is going to see something like this. I also added prettier and ESLint. Have a look in my repository, which I'm going to add into description, and you can see what you need and how you need to configure it. So here you see also prettier config file. All necessary dependencies you can also find in package.json. Also, I'm not going to focus on styles. I've used Tailwind, that's why many styles are going to be in code, but feel free to use anything you want. What else you are going to need? I already added REST URL into Constance. You can also copy that from my repository. I also added already types. So we are going to need posts and user types, and you can just copy them. You can just try in the browser to call the API link with posts and users, and then copy the data structure. So let's begin writing some code. You can see also here the structure of the folders. So for example, we are going to need API folders and components, hooks for custom hooks, pages, which are going to have only one page dashboard, but in case in the future we want to create more pages, it's better to structure it that way from the very beginning, and store. So first thing we are going to start with dashboard, and we are going to import it after that in app. So let's begin with the dashboard component. And for now we are going just to return some div, and we can already import it in our app. Now let's add two API calls that we are going to need. So we are going to need posts and users. Let's start with posts. And we are going to do the same with users. So I'm going just to copy that, paste it, and here I'm going to change it to users. And of course it's going to be called fetch users. Now in order to show posts, we need to create a post item. So we are going to do it in components. I already have all components that I need. And here we are going to need post item. Here for now we are going to return article. Let's add interface, post item props, and for post item props we are going to receive some data which is going to consist of post, which is going to be post, and user, which is going to be user. Here we're going to get our data, and here we are going to extract post and user. And here, for example, with heading 2, we are going to show at first post title, I think. And for example, for now, just some post. Let me check what posts have. So it has body as a description. So we can also say body. So now we can also update our dashboard and say, for example, that instead of hello, it's going to have heading 1. So where and how do we get our posts? For that, for now, we are going to use state. So for example, we are going to create posts state. So here we are going already to map through post. We receive each post and then we just return post item. It needs to have key so that React understands which item was changed. Data with this, it's going to be a little bit complicated because you can see if you try to call already for the APIs, you should see that posts and users, they are kind of not connected with each other. So it means that if we want to show something that in the post that is connected to user who wrote it, we need to connect them. We have in post only user ID. It means that we can fetch specific user by it, or if we don't have an API call to fetch specific user, so we need to fetch all users and then find our users by ID. But how can we do it in a smart way? What would be the best way to store data? Because if after that you're going to go through the whole array of users and look for the user by ID using find, it's going to be not very performant. So another option would be to store users by its ID within map. So we are going to create a users map with new map. And here we are going to go through all users and we are going to return user ID and user. So it means that when we actually need to get a user by his ID, we are going to do it very, very fast. And here we are going just to fetch both users and posts. So we are going to need a function, for example, fetch data. Here we are going to receive eventually posts data and users data, and we are going to receive it from promise all of both fetch posts and fetch users. And when both of these promises are resolved, we can do set posts and set users. And here we're going to call this fetch data. Why we are using promise all? Because there is no reason to fetch only posts or only users if we're going to use data from both of them. So when something doesn't work, then nothing works. Now what about data? So user is going to be the one that we get from our map. So we're going to get user and it's going to be users map, and now user is going to be our user. TypeScript thinks that user might be undefined, that's why we are going to add here that it can be undefined, and then here we not going to have an error. So that was it for our first fetching. Actually, I think that we can already check if it works. Let's now add some basic Tailwind styles. Let's start with article. So we are going to add class name bg white, border gray 200, rounded large, small shadow, padding. On hover we will do shadow medium. We will add transition and duration. Now let's add some classes to heading 2. Let's do a large text, font semi-bold, this one we don't need, margin bottom, and text gray 800. And now to post body, let's just do text gray 600 and margin bottom. because later we are going to add also user. Actually, let's do it already, because we know that we want to show the name of the author and it should be clickable, so that later we could also filter it by the names of the user. And also we know that we want to implement favorites logic, that's why we are going also to add favorite like star symbol. So that's why we can create already div that is going to have two buttons. And this div, we know that it's going to be flex. It should be justify between and item center. Now, if we have user, then we are going to have a button. And in this button, we are going to write a username. And then if there is user company, then we are going to write user company, otherwise nothing. We will need, we can try it in this way. We will need to do so. Because it has to be string. And this button, let's also add class names. It's going to have text blue 600, and we are going to remove outline but add border one focus. Outline none. And then focus again, ring 2. Now let's add button to add to favorites. For now we are going just to add a star symbol, and again class names. Let's do text XL, text gray 400. On hover we are going to make it bean yellow, text yellow 500. Also focus outline none. Instead focus ring 2. The color is going to be focus ring yellow 300. And round it. That's it. Let's have a look. I think here it should have brackets. And it should be, of course, company name. So yeah, that's how it looks right now. Already a little bit prettier. And you can see that there is on hover and focus. Nothing is happening, but yeah, we will add this logic too. Now let's add also few styles to dashboard, to our heading and list. For example, margin bottom, and to the UL. Oh, by the way, I forgot to add UL, unordered list. So this should be, of course, there inside. But it should be also inside the conditions, that only if we have any posts. This is going to be grid, gap 4. Let's see what it looks like now. Yeah, already better. Now we can add some basic filter by user. Let's do it for now in the parent component and just send callback function to the child, and then we'll do some refactoring later. So in post item, except for post user ID, like except for this data, we're also going to receive a callback function. For example, on filter by user. And it's going to receive user ID, which is going to be string, and return void. And here I'm going also to take it out. And then we are going to add it to onClick. Filter by user, and we're going to send here user ID. And now let's add it to the state in dashboard. It's going to be string. And then we are going to add here filtered posts. Wait, in the beginning we need to check if there is selected user ID. If yes, then we are going to filter. Otherwise, we are going to just return posts. So now let's write a function of setting filter. I'm going to receive user ID that is string. We are going to check if selected user ID is already user ID that we clicked again, and then return. And if not, then we are going to do set selected user ID, and we are going now to send it here. We are going also to do reset filter by user. And just set selected user ID empty string. And we are going now to also add a button to show all posts. So for example, when we have selected user ID, we are going to show a reset button. Set some styles. Let's add margin bottom. Let's add horizontal padding, vertical padding, but a little bit less. Background standard blue 600. On hover, let's do background a little bit darker. On focus, outline none, instead focus ring 2, and let's set on click reset, and let's actually put it into div. For now we'll add just padding 4. And here we are going to use now filtered posts, and here also. That's it. Let's check that it works. So here you see that we have different users, and for example when I click on, and here I have Leanne and here I have Erwin, so when I click on Erwin I see only Erwin. When I click a few times it doesn't work, and when I click show all then I see again all posts. Now it's time to add Zustand and to put some logic there. So you can find a library that you need to add in package.json, or if you already ran npm install, that everything should be fine. And after that you need also to create a store folder, and here we are going to start with use store posts. For that we need to import create from Zustand. Actually I don't need React. And because we want to make our data persistent, we also need persist. But it's also should be from just middleware. Let's create interface of posts store. Global store we are going to use for now only for favorite posts. That's why we are going to create this array, and it's going to be post array. Actually we are not going to store the whole objects, so I think it would be better to create an array of string so that we can store only IDs. Now let's create a function use store posts, and we use create, and the type is post store. And now because we have persist, we are going to create persist, and then inside we are going to have set, which is going to store our fav posts, and in the beginning it's going to be an empty array. I think I forgot a bracket. It should be so, and then one more bracket here, and then after we need to give a name to this, to how it should be stored. So we are going to call name, and for example call it just fav posts. That's it for now. So now we also need to add some logic in order to add or remove from favorite posts our posts. For that we are going to create few additional functions. For example toggle it should receive post ID, which is going to be string. And then we'll add just clear fav posts that is going just to reset everything. So let's start with toggle. We are going to receive here post ID, and we are going to set. We are going to receive state. And we are going to receive we are going to set fav posts, and here we are going to check if state fav posts includes post ID. If our post is already inside favorite posts, then we need to remove it, and we are going just to filter. Oh, we are going just to copy. Wait, it is already post ID. That's why we can just show right ID. And otherwise we are going to create a copy of state fav posts and add their post ID. That's it for toggle. Let's also create clear and here we should just do set, and we can do it once favorite posts, just an empty array. So that's it for Zustand store. Now let's add this logic to our post item. So here we are going also to get favorite posts and toggle favorite posts. And let's check if post is favorite or not. Is favorite. So we are checking if this post is favorite or not. So if it is, we are just going to check it here, is favorite, and then we are going to add a bold or solid symbol, star symbol. If not, it's going to be empty star symbol. And also we are going to add on click to this button. So on click it's going to be toggle, but we need to send post ID, so that's why it's going to be toggle favorite posts and post ID. That's it. Let's check if it works. So yeah, you can see that it works. And also, by the way, if you can see now that I have like four favorite posts, so when I reload it, it stays. So that's what persist means in Zustand, and eventually you can find this info if you go, for example, to Chrome DevTools And the application in local storage, you can see that it is stored under favorite posts. And all IDs of these favorite posts. Now we are going to implement remove favorites, but because we need to do it with 10 seconds option of reverting the action, it's going to be a little bit hard. So eventually we could try to do it here in the local state somehow, but it's not the best approach. I think better approach would be also to do it in Zustand, where we do all our favorite post logic. But in order for user to be able to revert his action, we need to kind of create a buffer in order to store the favorite posts, and in case when user chooses not to revert his actions, then we are going to clear it too. But if he does, then we're going to use this buffer in order to return our favorite posts. So it sounds a little bit difficult, but let's do it. So first of all, we need our buffer, and it's going to be temp, for example, 5 posts, which is also going to be string, array of string, and in the beginning it's also going to be empty. And because we are going to work with timeout, we are going also to store timeout ID, and that's how we are going to know if the action that caused this timeout to show was already called, so that we do not create now 100 timeouts, which is going to kill our memory in the browser. And we need also undo action. So in the beginning we are going to set timeout ID to null. That's just easier to check if timeout was already called or not. And then we are going to create here our undo action. Let's for now leave it. Eventually we are going also to change our clear5 posts, because we need to store now some our favorite post data in the buffer and then clear it. And except for set, you can also use get in Zustand. So we are going to use this getter in order to get some things from our current state. For example, we are going to get 5 posts and also timeout ID. So here at first we are going to check if timeout ID already exists, and we need to clear it in order to, again, not to garbage our memory. And also if, for example, there is no favorite posts, we just going to return, because if we don't have favorite posts, then we don't have anything to clear. If everything was fine, then we do our set. And in set we are doing the following. First of all, temporary temp 5 posts are going to be 5 posts, and 5 posts are going to be an empty array. We are going to create our timeout. New timeout ID. We are going to use set timeout. We're going to set it to 10 seconds. And here we are going to set we are going to clear 5 posts. We are going to also clear temporary posts, and we are going to clear timeout ID. And after that we are going to set timeout ID to new timeout ID. What we are doing here, we are getting our favorite post and timeout ID. If there is no favorite post, then we do nothing. If there is existing timeout ID, we clear it. Then we save our favorite posts in our buffer. We create timeout and save it in timeout ID. Why we do that? We need it for undo. When we create our set timeout, we also clear everything. So after the timeout runs, there is no reset anymore. So everything was cleared. Now let's implement undo. We also need to get something from our store, and it's going to be our temp posts and timeout ID. So first of all, if we canceled our action, first thing that we need to do is clear timeout so that this doesn't happen. And then we are doing our set. So if user decided that he has to reverse the action, we need to set favorite posts to our temp favorite posts. We need to clear our temp favorite posts, and we need to clear timeout ID. Now let's set our favorites logic to dashboard for now. So here we're going also to create a toggle favorites. For that we are going to add new state. And here we're just going to do set show only favorites, and we are going to do pref state and return not pref state. This button, by the way, also should be shown only if we have filtered posts. And we will change it because we now are going to have another filter. Remove user filter. We are going to get here our favorite post. We are going to need favorite post, temporary favorite post, sync toggle, and also clear. Actually not toggle, but undo. And now filtered posts, we also need to consider if there is anything in favorite posts. So it's now not going to be filtered posts, but also favorite filtered posts. Actually, no. In the beginning, we need to understand what is happening at first. So, for example, if I'm filtering by user, do I need to filter favorite posts before that or after that? And actually, you need to filter favorite posts before that, because if you clicked on filtered only on your favorite posts and then on user, so you need to filter your favorite posts. But if you, for example, also clicked on user and then on favorite posts, then again you need to show only favorite posts. That's why we are going to add a filter by favorite posts. So if we chose to show only favorites, we are going to filter our posts. And if favorite posts includes a post ID. If no, then it's going to be just posts. And here in our filtered posts, we now need to use our favorite filtered posts here and also here. Now let's make this div bin flex, because we are going to add here more buttons. Let's do gap 4, for example, and we don't need padding anymore. And let's do align items center. And now here we are going to check that our favorite posts length more than 0, or we chose to show only favorites. And then we are also going to show a button which is going to be or show all or show favorites. On click here is going to toggle favorites, and we're going to just style it a little bit. For example, margin bottom 4, padding again. I think we'll just take everything from this button. And another button is going to be clear all favorites. It's going to have on click clear favorite posts, and I think that the styles I'm going to add the same. And for now, here we're going to create a pop-up, which later we're going to move to separate pop-up component. But for now, just to show it, we need a variable that we can call show pop-up. And how we're going to understand we need to show it, we are just going to check if temp5 posts, if we stored something in temporary posts. So here, show pop-up, and let's create some div. Background gray 900, text white around it with shadow, padding vertical, should be flex, item center, gap 4, and animate fade in. Here let's write some text that all favorites were removed, and here we are going to create a button, revert, should have on click undo, and class name, for example, text black, font semi-bold, padding and hover a little bit lighter. Now let's do some refactoring, at least of the dashboard. So you can see already that generally we can take all this div with all filters and put it into separate component, and then also to create, for example, pop-up component. So let's do that. And I already have filter panel component, so let's just create it there. Export default function. Okay, and now we need to understand what we need additionally to take from our dashboard. For example, selected user ID. And all these functions, you can see that it's already not used here, so it's probably going to go there. We can take this out. But for that we need to include also temp posts. So I don't think we need, we can take it from here, there. And you can see already that actually we need this show only favorites and selected user ID in order to implement filtering and show posts. So for now we are going to send it in props, but later on we are going to see that actually maybe we can do more refactoring and put it into global state. For now let's think about props and create interface. And let's think about the data that we are, or props that we are going to receive from parent component. We are going to need posts in order to show, to understand that we need to show our buttons. And then we are going to use few filters, but in order for it to be more like to group props together, we are going to call the prop filters. And we are going to create an object, and here we are going to use this selected user ID, which is going to be string, and show only favorites, which is going to be boolean. And the same we are going to do with actions. So we are going to have two actions, and they are going to be reset filter by user, and the second one is going to be toggle only favorites. And here later we are going to get our selected user ID and show only favorites, and we are going to get our reset and toggle from actions. And let's see, so eventually here we are going just, for now on I'm going to remove it because it's still going to be left in our parent component. Here we are going to use posts, here we are going to use our toggle favorites, and here also posts. And now in dashboard, what we still need, we need only 5 posts from our global storage. Let's return for now the 2 functions that I moved. but show pop-up, we don't need it here anymore. And again, let's remove it. And instead of all these huge divs that we had here, we are going to add filter panel. And it already tells you what you need to send here. So as posts, we are going to send filtered posts, and as filters we are going to send object where we are going to say that selected user ID is going to be selected user ID, and show only favorites. Let's just check that it's called the same way. Yes. And actions, the same, it's going to be an object, and we are going to, there was reset filter by user, which is the same, and toggle only favorites, which should be toggle favorites. There we will come later, but now let's do more refactoring. So it's already a little bit better, but what else we can do? First of all, in filter panel we can extract our pop-up. So you can see that here I already have a pop-up component, so let's create it. And we are going to take everything that is here. So undo clear favorites post we can get from the storage. And I think that was it. So here in filter panel we are going to show pop-up. Looks already a little bit better. And now let's also refactor a little bit more our dashboard. And one thing that we can do, we can remove this unordered list and we can put it into posts list. So let's create an interface. And let's again think about data. So we need here now to have our posts and users. And what we did in dashboard and created, for example, this users map, we are going now to do there. So for now, data. And we also need our own filter by user. And now here in dashboard, we are going to edit. Posts should be our filtered posts. And here should be filtered by user. So that was the first step of refactoring. We already cleaned our code a little bit, but you still can see, for example, that filter panel has many props. So maybe, as I mentioned already, it would be much better to put it also to global state. So for that, in order not to put everything into one place, let's create useStore filters and let's manage here the state that is connected to filters. So first of all, we are going to, by the way, in Zustand you can create few states, which is very flexible and big and comfortable. And here we are going to have interface of our filters store. And here we just need the same filters that we already using, but we are going just to move them from local state to global state. So this is going to be string. This is going to be boolean, and we also need filter by user ID, but no, it's going to be void, and it definitely doesn't need all this. That's why autocomplete is not always a good thing, but we do need to get user ID, which is string, and here we just have toggle favorites. Now let's create our state. So we are going to export const filters, and it's going to be create. Here we are writing filter store. Here we are also going to need set and get. Here we need to add initial state. It's going to be false. And here we are going to implement this logic. So first of all, we are going to receive selected user ID from get. We don't need show favorites. And then we are going to check if selected user ID is the same as user IDs, and we're just going to do return, do nothing. If not, then we are just going to set selected user ID. It's going to be user ID. Now user ID. And here we are going to do toggle favorites, but because we need to do toggle, we are going at first get. And here we are going to do show only. Did I make a typo? I will just copy it. So yes, so now we are going to use it in our filter panel. So here, for example, we are not going to need anymore all these filters and actions. We are going to need only posts, so that we can delete. And also from here, and here we are going to receive all the things from the store. So instead of reset filter by user, we are going just to do filter by user ID, and here we're going just to send an empty string. And here toggle only favorites, we're going to call it toggle favorites. So already better, and also in the dashboard, then we don't need to send all of it to our filter panel, so we don't need filters and actions anymore, and it became much shorter. And also then you see that we don't need these functions anymore. Also, let's change a little bit post list. So in the post list, we also don't need this function anymore. We're going to delete it, and we are going also to receive filter by user, and here we're going to do the same, filter by user ID, and we are going to send post user ID. Wait, actually it shouldn't happen here. We can remove it at all from this component, because we can do it straight in post item. We don't need to receive it in our props anymore. We will just call it here. And then we will change it here. That was it. And now also in dashboard, we don't need anymore to send it to our post list. And then we can also remove this function. And let's check what else we can refactor here. So these things we can also receive now from our store. That was it. Now let's fix a little bit pop-up, and let's make it a little bit more accessible. So first of all, because it is an alert and it is important to also to inform the users who do not see that something happened, then we are going to add a throw alert. And for screen readers to do that, they need to read it. We are going to add area live, but not polite, rather assertive, because that's important information and the user should know he has already only 10 seconds to decide if he is going to revert it or not. And for it to receive focus, we are going to add tab index -1. Also to this button, I think it should be added background white, yeah. Yes, I saw one typo in filtered posts. Eventually it should be fav filtered posts, and before that I had fav posts which we received from store. That's why the list was actually empty. Now let's look. So that's what we have. We can filter only by user. We can show only favorites by that user. We can remove user filter and see all the favorites. We can clear all favorites, and then we can revert. And of course, if we do not do this, after 10 seconds it should disappear and you cannot revert it anymore. Yeah, so now you can only do show all and you don't have favorites anymore. Let's see what else we can do in our project. So we are almost in the end, but now you saw that we can already do many things and use our app with mouse, but what, for example, to do, we want to use keyboard. And for that, we are going to have already problems with, for example, focus. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to implement it, but eventually we can use a technique of sending callback to our store. Like, I'm going to explain you what the problem is. The problem is that because we have this timeout, and also because we have many things that are managed with state, like for example pop-up, we show only when we have some temp favorites posts, and pop-up is not rendered in the DOM till we add some post to the buffer. So it means that, for example, at the point when we click on delete all favorite posts, and for example, if after that we would try to set focus on this pop-up, it wouldn't work, because even if you try, if we, for example, edit ID to our pop-up and we tried to find this pop-up using get element by ID from the DOM, it wouldn't work and it would be undefined because it still doesn't exist. So we need kind of to wait till this pop-up exists and then set focus. And now we are going to try to manage all these things. So we need to control two focus states. So for example, when we open pop-up, then we need to move focus to our revert button. And actually this is not the hardest part, because here we can create a ref. For example, revert btn ref. Let's import it. And then, of course, here we are going to edit. But in order for that to work, we need to add use effect. A use effect. And for example, if already revert btn has current, it means that button was mounted, then we can focus it. So this part should work properly, because this use effect will be called only when pop-up on already mounts, and that's why it should work. Let's check. So for example, we are going to add few favorites, and now we are going to go to the show favorites button with using only keyboard, and now we are going to clear all favorites, and here you saw that focus moved to revert button. So if I press it, I did revert it everything. So now we have another problem. So you see, when I press it, now I don't have focus anywhere on the page. So when I press tab, I'm actually back on track, but it's not the best solution anyway. So we need to put focus somewhere. And in the case when, for example, we did press clear all favorites and then reverted it or didn't revert it, then in any case we are going to have this show all button. So the best solution will be to put focus on the show all button. So let's try to do it. And here it's getting trickier, because as I mentioned already, it's not enough to just try to find the show all button and, for example, to add it to undo clear fav posts and try to find it after that by ID or anything, because the show all button still doesn't exist in DOM. So the best option to do it would be actually to send to this undo clear fav pose callback, like dismiss, so that we could call it in the state, in the store. So let's add in the beginning ref also to this, to our show all button. And let's our callback, for example, const dismiss pop-up. And here we are going to check. So if button already exists, then we are going to focus it. And now after clear fav posts, we are going to send it there. Let's go there and let's fix this. The type should be that it should have some sort of options, and this option should be an object, and here we can write on this miss, for example, which is going to be a function going to receive on dismiss. And now it's going to be a little bit even more trickier. So the problem is that actually we can, for example, do dismiss, but what is going to happen when we reverted the action? So we need kind of to tell that do not do focus. I said some rubbish to you. So actually, why do we need on dismiss not only in clear fav post, because there are two options. First of all, we can wait till the end of timeout, and then everything is going to be removed forever, and then we need on dismiss in order to put our focus to show all button. Or we can also reverse the action, and then we also need to put focus on show button. That's why we are going to actually save this callback also in our state. So we are going to call it, for example, dismiss callback, which is going to be this. In the beginning, it's going to be now. So we need to say this or now. I think I need brackets here so that it works. Yeah. Now here I need also to add dismiss callback, and it's going to be on dismiss. That's just for our revert logic. Then, of course, if we get to our on timeout, then we call on dismiss. But if we don't, we need to add it also to our dismiss callback. So we need to retrieve it from our getter. And then, for example, here, before that, we can check that if it is not now, then we are going to call it. And then here we are going also to clear it. And that was it. Let's see if it works. So I am pressing on clear all favorites, focus move to revert. I press revert, focus move to show all. Let's try to clear all favorites and do nothing till it is removed forever. And yeah, you saw that focus was moved again to show all. So I can return my all posts and continue tabbing through everything. And again, everything works perfectly also with the keyboard. Let's see what we can do next. Now we can do even more refactoring. So here in dashboard you can see that there is a lot of logic, for example this use effect, which is asking to be moved to custom hooks. So as before that I already created use post data, and let's try to move that post and users logic there. So first of all, let's create an interface, but this time it's not going to be props or arguments, but it's going to be return data. And we are going to return posts and users. So let's import it. And now we can just go to dashboard and take from here this part. And use effect. And eventually we are going just to return, and we are going to do to return posts and users. And now here in dashboard we are going get it from our hook. So it became a little bit better. Also we can remove all these parts. Now what else we can do? Few accessibility improvements. For example, let's go to post item, and here we have this favorite button, and it's not clear what it is doing, because a person who doesn't see is going to hear some strange things, I think, that don't make any sense. So let's add some area label, and also let's use its favorite. So for example, we are going to check if it is favorite, then we are going to add remove from favorites, and if it is not, then add to favorites. And also probably we can add something to user button, because we see that the screen reader is going to read username and user company, but the user who doesn't see is not going to have any idea that it can be filtered by user. So let's also add some area label, something like filter post by, I think, posts by user name. So already few improvements. Now let's talk about error boundary. So usually you can kind of rope your app with error boundary, and then when something unexpected happened, for example, I don't know, there was a internet crash, your API suddenly stopped working and you didn't expect it, so the application didn't receive actually any error, but it would just crash. Or even if you unexpectedly have somewhere undefined error, or like, I don't know, anything happened, in order for your app not to crash, you can wrap your application with error boundary, and there you can kind of implement some generic error catching logic. So let's do it for the beginning. And also in React 19, error boundary existed already for a long time, and actually that's also the problem of error boundary, that it's still written using class components. But in React 19, it was connected in a good way, in my opinion, with suspense. It means that when we use function of React 19, or it was actually implemented even before, and for example, something went wrong and some promises were not resolved. First of all this logic, before that you had to write error and then loading, and you had to set loading to true, then to false, then to set error, and etc. Now you can do everything with suspense. But that's why we also are going to change our hook, for example, use post data. And in suspense, for example, we can use fallback for loading state, and then error boundary for any errors that we do not expect. So, for example, in the beginning, let's wrap our dashboard with suspense from React. So that's our loading state. And now we are going also, because we still don't have, let's implement error boundary in the beginning. So some React class component logic. Class error boundary extends component from React. It is going to have children. That is going to be React node. No, it should be written together. And then we are going to have a fallback, which is going to be also React node. And here we are going to have has error, which is going to be boolean. Here we are going to do export default error boundary. Here we are going to declare state. It's going to be has error false in the beginning, and we are going to write a method. So actually we don't need React. It's going to be static get derive state from error. This one. We do not need error itself, because we're just going to return has error true. And then here we are going to add render. No. So, and we are going to check if this state has error. We are going to return fallback. And if not, then we are going to just return these props children. Let's now try to wrap our app with error boundary. I forgot return. So that was it. Of course, you can do many different things here. For example, for now, I am managing only if there is error or if there isn't error. And I'm also receiving fallback from the app. So of course it can be managed differently, but for now let's leave it so. Let's change our use post data so that we forgot to add interface. So now let's change it so that we can use from React 19. It's going to change a lot. So at first we are also going to create a kind of data promise. And its type is going to be promise. Or it can be null. And in the beginning it's going to be null. I'll explain later what and why do we need it. So here we are not going to return anything. And our fetch data is going now to go outside of this hook. And there we are going to do, first of all, we need to check if promise already exists, because if it does and we are not checking it, we are going to create new promises, and we do not want to do that. So if it doesn't exist, we are going to do what we are doing here. And then we are going to do then at once here. And what we did here, we are going also to move it there into then. And eventually we are just going to return data promise. Here we do not need anything anymore. We are just going to use fetch data, and we're going to call this. Actually, because we are using then we do not need a wait. So a little bit esoteric, but it is what it is. Now use is going to control all these errors, error catching and loading states, and it is going to use our suspense for that. Suspense and error boundary. Also one small fix in pop-up, so that it always is located at the same place. Let's do fixed instead of absolute. And one more thing that I think we can improve is our filtering logic, because you see that it's not the best option that we are using includes and that we are going through all the array a few times. So let's do better. And for that we can use set. Let's create fef posts set. We are going to create it from our favorite posts. We don't actually need our fef filtered posts. We are going to use only filtered posts. And here we are going to change it a little bit. We are going to write post filter, and here we are going to improve the logic. So we are going to check if show only favorite posts and not that favorite posts set has post ID, then we return false. Or if there is a selected user ID and selected user ID not equal post user ID, we are going to return also false. And only then we are going to return true. So this thing we do not need anymore. Let's fix here typo. So I hope you understand what's going on here. When we filter based on some conditions. So we are going through all posts. We are checking that if, for example, users pressed show only favorites, and if, for example, favorites post set doesn't have post ID, then we do not need this post. Why we use set? We use set because it's faster to go through set and find if this post ID exists there. It is faster than to go through different array with includes. After that, we check, for example, if user also clicked on filter by user, but if user ID is not the same as in this side they suppose, then we also return false. And only if we go through all these two checks and everything was true, then we return true. So that's how we are going to do it much quicker, to do filtering much quicker. So that was pretty it. I see that here I don't have errors anymore, and here I don't have errors anymore too. I don't see any errors here. Let's run prettier and lint, and also lint. You can do this prettier, right? All the prettier configuration you can find here. So for example, you see that we prefer to use single quotes, etc. So you see that here everything changed. And that was pretty it. Of course, there might be other different approaches or other improvements. For example, we could put posts and users probably into global state. You can sit and suggest me in the comments what would you change or what else you would implement or how you would implement. But I hope that with the help of this small app, you could understand how to use Zustand and also a little bit how to write custom hooks and also how to change it eventually to use from React, how to use suspense and error boundary. To sum up, I would say that why, for example, or when you would use Zustand. First of all, I would say that it's a good option of global state management for small apps. So you have, in this case, for example, you do not need to add something like Redux toolkit. It is perfect for small dashboards. It has a persistent logic, so you saw that it's kind of easy to implement. Also, to use its state is simple, and you saw that you can also separate state from each other and you don't need to keep everything in one place. Actions live next to state, so the architecture is kind of clean. You have everything in one place. For example, everything that is connected to favorite posts we have in one file, and everything that is connected to filters we have in another file. So everything is kind of under 30 lines, let's say. And that's why Zustand is perfect in this case. This small application actually shows many different principles of React that you should know and should understand how to and when to implement them. I would like to add some more info about error boundary, because you can be asked, especially if you implement it in your, for example, coding challenge, you might be asked about it during your interview. So first of all, error boundaries do not handle server status codes because they catch rendering errors, they catch lifecycle errors, errors thrown inside components, errors thrown by promises used with use, but only if they throw any error. And they do not catch server errors, return as normal HTTP responses, rejected fetches that you handle manually, error objects you return instead of throw, and status codes like 400, 404, 500, unless you explicitly throw an error. So what should you do in order for error boundary actually catch a server error? So you need to check response status and then throw an error manually. So for example, let's go to our API and let's see that here we do only then and we do not check anything, we just return JSON. So actually before returning JSON, you're going to do it in the end. But before that, you're going to check if, for example, not res OK, then you're going to throw an error. And you're going, for example, throw new error. Yeah, you can do that. Or you can write something manually, for example, server error. Or you can not only check for if res is not okay, but also to compare it to the different statuses. Depends on what you actually need. So eventually, fetch data in our use is going to rethrow this error, and error boundary is going to catch it. But now, for example, also in this case, error boundary is going to show only fallback. So what do we need to do then? So you're not going to have has error, but you're also going to have, for example, error. And state is going to be that error, for example, is now in the beginning. Here it should be also or now. And here then we need to catch error. Here we are going to update also an error. And here, for example, this time we are not going to do fallback to return for fallback, but rather a message that you want to show, for example, from this state. Error message. So few irritating TypeScript problems. Actually, we need to check. Or then we are going to return the state error message. So now it's going to catch also errors from the server. Don't ask me, it's just TypeScript magic. So yeah, I think that was it. Main points that I wanted to show you in this video. If you have additional questions or something wasn't really clear, so ask me in the comments, I will try to answer it. And again, if you have any suggestions of implementation or anything interesting to share, just also let's discuss it in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching, and I hope that it helped you to understand a little bit more of React and Zustand, and see you next time. Tschüss.